Hi. The article we chose for our research project, when given the opportunity to look over many different articles on in vitro fertilization, dealing with many different species, was the oxidative stress impairs oocyte quality, and melatonin protects oocytes from free radical damage and improves fertilization rates. The many different species that are discussed in this article will be further discussed later by Rachel. This article was published in 2008 by the Journal of Pineal Research, and it was found on PubMD. Hello and welcome to our presentation. My name is Holly Slater. I'm a junior and I'm an animal science major.
I'm Stephanie Soltis. I'm a sophomore and I'm animal science and biology major.
I'm Megan Schott. I'm a junior. I'm animal science and biology major.
I'm Rachel Lane. I'm a sophomore and I'm animal science and a biology major.
Awesome. So our presentation today is about oxidative stress and how it impairs oocyte quality, and melatonin protects the oocyte from free radical damage and improves fertilization rates. It's a mouthful. Alright. As technology advances in medicine, new discoveries are being made about the physiology of human reproduction. These advancements have led us to find that oxidative stress has a negative effect on oocyte development. The main article that we have researched addresses the effects that melatonin can have on oocytes in respect to lessening the actions of these oxidative species on the maturation of oocytes. Here's a little bit about melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that's naturally produced by the pineal gland in response to a lack of inhibitory stimulus from the photoreceptor in the brain. Melatonin plays an important role in the reproduction of seasonal breeders, yet its effects on humans is not so well known. High levels of melatonin are found in the pre-ovulatory follicular fluid of the human oocyte. Whether or not this has a direct effect on the follicle's chance of insemination is still being studied. Melatonin is a powerful antioxidant whose enzymes protect oocyte and embryos against oxidative stress from molecules such as hydrogen peroxide. Studies have shown that melatonin significantly reduces the effects of oxidative stress on oocyte maturation. So how is all of this relevant? This study was conducted to look at the effects that oxidative stress had on the quality of an oocyte, as well as to determine if melatonin affected the oocyte in any way due to its antioxidant properties. Due to increased interest and demand for in vitro fertilization, the outcome of this experiment is of great importance to many medical professionals involved in reproductive practices, such as fertility treatment centers and centers for cryopreservation. Because melatonin does have a positive effect on oocytes, reproductive specialists can start to consider implementing new techniques involving melatonin into their practices. If scientists figure out how to take this discovery and use it to aid in the continuous improvement of in vitro fertilization, the benefits would be astronomical. This discovery could benefit many women and couples in this world who are having trouble getting pregnant and are looking for the best possible option for their family. Sadly, this industry, its practices are not an exact science. There is no 100% guarantee that in vitro fertilization or embryo transfers will be successful. The result of this study offers hope to those individuals who have nowhere else to turn and are looking for help. Further experimentation with methods of introducing the melatonin into the oocytes environment, as well as further investigation, should be done to solidify the findings that were discussed in this article.
Okay. Alright. Okay, I did methods for the study that we did. There was 189 patients that consented to it, and all of them wanted to become pregnant, which was needed for the study. The mean age of the group of people was 34.8 years, plus or minus 3.8 years, and the range was 24 to 45 years. They were all non-smokers and free from medical illness. They excluded the people that had abnormalities that would have affected pregnancy, and or used estrogens, androgens, progesterones, or other medications that could affect it. The patients underwent in vitro fertilization and embryo transfer with something called standardized ovarian stimulation protocol. They used GnRH agonists, and then in the beginning, in the mid-luteal phase, they gave 300 IU FSH on the second and third day, and 225 IU FSH on the fourth and fifth day. And then after 150, and then after that, 150 IU of human menopausal gonadotropins. And then when at least 3 follicles were at 18 millimeters or more in diameter, they gave 10,000 IU human chorionic gonadotropic hormone. They used a guided transvaginal oocyte removal that was done 34 hours later after the ovarian stimulation protocol. And each of the follicles was completely aspirated into one tube, and the follicular fluid in each tube had the oocyte in it. And then the oocytes were inseminated with sperm, which was assessed 16 to 18 hours after the sperm was introduced to find if it had been fertilized. And then embryo transfer happened 48 hours after insemination. Immediately after the removal of the oocyte, the follicular fluid that was taken out in each tube from the follicles was centrifuged to remove any of the cellular components, and the supernatant was kept at negative 80 degrees Celsius to keep it for later, like I was saying. The concentration of melatonin and biomarkers for oxidative stress in the follicles were determined for each patient, and they found if the patients had become pregnant by whether there was a gestational sac on the ultrasonography 5 weeks after the oocyte had been removed. And then just some measurements, the way they measured the melatonin. They used radioimmunoassay to measure the concentrations of melatonin that were in the supernatant part of that follicular fluid from the tubes. To measure the two hormones, OHDG and HEL, they used an ELISA kit. And then for statistical analysis, they used the computer program SPSS for Windows 13.1. And those are the methods.
I'm going to analyze the results section of the study we looked at. The The percentage of degenerate oocytes and concentrations of 8-OHDG as a biomarker for oxidative stress were looked at in the follicular fluid, as we were talking about, to examine the relationship between the oocyte quality and intrafollicular oxidative stress. So we found intrafollicular 8-OHDG in concentrations in women with high rates of degenerative oocytes were significantly higher than those in women with low rates of degenerative oocytes, which a high rate is greater than 30%. 8-OHDG concentrations are significantly and negatively correlated with interfollicular concentrations of melatonin. After melatonin was added to the intrafollicular, 8-OHDG levels decreased during the IVF ET cycle compared to the control group that had no melatonin. The control cycle was 112 plus to minus 51 picograms per milliliter versus the melatonin cycle that was 432 plus or minus 260 picograms per milliliter. Vitamin E was also found to decrease intrafollicular levels of 8-OHDG in the follicular fluid in the women. HEL is a biomarker of oxidative stress and a biomarker of lipid peroxidation. HEL levels were greatly decreased in the follicular fluid with the vitamin A treatments, and with a combination of vitamin A and melatonin versus the control group. Melatonin alone helped to decrease the intrafollicular level of HEL also, but was not statistically significant compared to vitamin A and melatonin combined. So now we're going to look at the results of melatonin on the fertilization rate itself. The 56 patients that received melatonin treatment had a greatly improved fertilization rate. The effect of melatonin treatments on the 115 patients who had failed to become pregnant in previous IVF ET cycles with a low fertilization rate of greater than 56% chance that they were not going to get pregnant. 11 out of the 56 patients became pregnant, which is about 19.6% of the group. And in the control group that did not receive melatonin, 6 out of the 56 women became pregnant, which is about 10.2% of the group. This means that there is no statistical difference in fertilization and pregnancy rates between the two groups.
Discuss the conclusion. All right, so before we do anything, I'm going to go back to the hypothesis of why the study was conducted. So the main goal of the study, or the problem, was women and their pregnancy rates and women not getting pregnant when they wanted to. So they wanted to try and figure out a cause for this and a way to alleviate that problem. So this study, the goal was to study the relationship between oxidative stress and poor oocyte quality, and they wanted to specifically determine if the supplementation of melatonin, which is an antioxidant, if that would improve the overall quality. So for those who don't know much about melatonin, it is in the class of antioxidants, so that means that it helps reduce the amount of reactive oxygen species in a medium. So you always hear about humans eating antioxidants. So for the oocytes, it's really important that they're in the proper medium. If they're not in the proper medium, then they won't be able to grow and mature and be fertilized in the best way possible, which obviously you want them to be in the best medium. So this study is trying to determine what the best medium is, and generally the rule is lower reactive oxygen species means it's better for the oocyte. So since melatonin is a well-known antioxidant, they're thinking that supplementing it will help decrease the amount of reactive oxygen species, which will hopefully have a good impact on the fertilization and maturation of the oocyte. So now we're going to look at how the methods were conducted in order to answer the hypothesis. So they tested melatonin and vitamin E, and they hoped that the supplementation of each of these would help decrease the levels of the reactive oxygen species and thus increasing the conception rates. So in order to test this, we had 2 different test groups. As Steph already mentioned, we have a test group of women who desire to get pregnant and who have had trouble getting pregnant in the past. And then we also have a test group of mice. So now we're going to look at what was measured. So we're going to look at the amount of intrafollicular 8-hydroxy-2-alpha deoxyguanosine, and we're also going to look at the effects of the hexanoyl lysine and also the effects on fertilization rates. All right, so now moving on to all of the results and the conclusions. So as Holly already mentioned earlier in the presentation, this is very applicable to the real world or modern day society. For women who are having trouble getting pregnant, they're always trying to find new ways in order to help alleviate that. And they were thinking if this study found that adding melatonin was successful, then this could be used to help women get pregnant in the future, and it might even be used on a large scale one day if it is that helpful. It is also helpful when you look at the animal production sector. Specifically in swine, it's pretty expensive for in vitro fertilization, and there's some problems with it. So what they've been trying to do is add several different kind of antioxidants to try and figure out if there's one specifically that would really help maturation and development. So that is really helpful. So that was basically the whole reason of doing this study, just to try and help with those real-world applications. So what they found was that there was a statistically different significance between the control group, which didn't have melatonin, or there's also a group where they purposefully added an oxidant, and it was found that melatonin was proven to help protect oocytes from oxidative stress. And that was proven in this study, but it was also been proven in several other species other than humans and mice. It's also been proven in cattle, swine, and sheep as well. So that's interesting to know. Then the second thing that they found was that melatonin administration helps increase the intrafollicular melatonin concentration, which is to be expected since they supplemented it. Also, they found that it reduces the intrafollicular oxidative damage and elevates the amount of fertilization and pregnancy rates, which was the whole goal of the study. So hopefully they'll be able to go and implement this into real-world applications, and possibly it'll be normal in hospitals and everything like that in the future to come. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great afternoon. This is our references side. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great afternoon.